What is going on, everybody? Eric with 𝐸⍬𝐾 here. Thanks for tuning in for another video. This video is going to be about how I started a pool. This pool here I started up, we're on the last day of startup for today, so I just want to walk you through my process on how I successfully start up pools. Now I know this isn't the only way to do it, and I know that a lot of you guys are going to come in with comments like, oh, you should do it this way, or you should do it that way. I don't really care. This is the process I found that's successful for me. I've started well over 100 pools now, so I'm by no means an expert or know-it-all, but this process has been shown to work for me. So let me go and show you the process and just walk you through the entire deal. So let's go ahead and get started. I figured what better place to start than here at the equipment, because this is some adjustments you're gonna have to make here before you first treat the pool on day one. So the first thing I always like to do, if they have a heater like right over there, the one thing I like to do is always put the heater in bypass mode so water's not circulating through it. You can see that's turned off, so no water is circulating through this at all. You don't want to torch out the exchange or anything like that by starting the pool up or anything like that, so it's just best to not have any water circulating, so it's bypassed. You can see the system has a salt system right there. No salt for 30 days. No swimming for 30 days, and no vacuuming for the first 30 days as a general rule of thumb, because the plaster or concrete's still curing, and you don't want to interrupt that or cause issues by vacuuming or swimming. I've literally seen footprints in pools that develop over time because they got in too early, and then, you know, the concrete wasn't cured all the way, and then now the pool has footprints, and there's not really a whole lot you can do about it. Regarding the pool pump, which is right over there, you want to make sure that's running 24/7 just to keep the water circulating at all times. It's very important during the startup phase. It doesn't have to be at full speed, but nonetheless, just as long as it's moving the water well in the pool, that's all you can ask for. Now, regarding valve setup and all that kind of stuff, you can see over here on the returns, there is a couple of fountains, which are right there, and you see that I have them barely cracked. And I'll show you why. I'll walk you over to the pool in a second, but this thing had waterfalls or laminar jets or anything like that. All that stuff would be turned off because you don't want to aerate the water from all the bubbles and everything like that that water features typically cause, because then you can be battling a higher pH already than you need to be, because the pH is going to be pretty much through the roof in the first 6 months or so, give or take, just because concrete is constantly going out in the water, and concrete by nature is high in pH, so on and so forth. But we'll get in that part in the chemistry here. But you can see that I have the fountains just gently cracked for the sun shelf, and the reason why I do that is because I want the sun shelf circulating chemicals, so there's no chemicals just sitting on the surface, you know, discoloring it or anything like that. But it's not so much to where I'm fighting a high pH. You know, they're not gushing out of the water, causing all kinds of bubbles. You can see the bubbles are very minimal, but nonetheless, you want this circulating along with the rest of the pool. So for sun shelf bubblers, I always have them cracked just enough to break the surface and circulate the water. Now that I walked through the equipment setup to better your chances of starting up a pool successfully, let's go over the chemistry. So for this particular builder I work with, I come here twice a week, and what I start my pools up on is the LSI, and it's a very important thing to pay attention to when you're starting up the pool. So, you know, getting off a little topic here, when you're starting up a pool up in the summertime is wildly different than the winter time if you're going by the LSI, because the biggest swing in the LSI calculations is the temperature. So it's not a one size fits all based on the season, so you got to make sure that you are starting the pool up appropriately based on the time of year using the LSI. Now with that said, I like to shoot to keep my pools between -0.1 and -0.2, slightly on the corrosive side. And the reason for that is it helps eat some of the cream off the pool that might have been left behind, you know, after the pool was built or renovated. It helps expose the aggregate underneath to give a nice finished look. You can see this pool's looking great. We're on the last day, like I mentioned. And that also will help eat the calcium dust that's in the pool, you know, as you're brushing with each surface that you're here. So generally speaking, what I do on day one is I will obviously do a full test. Full testing goes every single visit we're here during the startup so we can see the changes. And one of the biggest changes we always see is the calcium. So generally speaking, around this area, our calcium is pretty low. So I believe the first visit here, and the calcium is at 190, and I just tested this today, and it is at 400 even. So I didn't add any calcium-based products to the pool at all, which we'll get into that here shortly. And you can see it raised about 200 parts per million just through the startup process. So I would guard against adding calcium-based products for at least the first 30 days because it's going to naturally increase as you start up the pool. So on day one, what I'll do is, after the full test, I'll generally add some chlorine to get rid of the green, because generally there's some metals in the water and you get that little greenish tinge look to it. Obviously treat the pool with acid to bring the acid down. Every pool I've started up has been a sky high pH and sky high alkalinity. So that needs to be brought down immediately to prevent scaling. And then what I do is add half of a bottle of Jack's Magenta right off on the first visit. And then generally around week 2, I'll add the last half. Why do I split it up like that? Well, from my understanding, the Jack's Magic has a half-life of around 7 to 10 days. So, I would like to stretch out the effectiveness of the Magenta to prevent staining for the entire length of the 30 days. So that's why I split it up like that. And then another thing you'll see here is I have a tablet feeder zip tied to the skimmer just to make sure that there's chlorine in the pool at all times, because I don't really add stabilizer until around week 3, maybe even 4. Generally, it's just kept out of the water until then. Just a process I do. Right or wrong, it's just the way I operate. Plus, these tablets have some stabilizer in it. And then in addition to that, the tablets are acidic, so it'll help keep the pH and alkalinity down just by having it in the water. So that's generally what I do on day 1. And then from there, my typical startup process is Monday through Thursday, or Monday and Thursday. So I'll be here on Monday, and then I'll be here on Thursday, which is today is Thursday. And then I will do another full test and just adjust the chemicals accordingly, again, to keep it more on the acidic side based on the LSI. So it's a thing I do each visit, is run the LSI to make sure that the chemistry is proper, so that way I don't have to deal with calcium scaling or anything like that. So that's really the chemistry part involved with starting up a pool. It's not terribly difficult. You just want to have the right processes and right guidelines to go off of. And for me, it's just staying slightly corrosive on the LSI and then doing a full test each week to make sure I catch any issues before they become a problem. So hopefully this chemistry portion has helped you guys, and next we will move on to what physical services I do during the startup service. All right, guys, so I just got done testing the pool. So the readings were 4 chlorine, 7.4 pH, the alkalinity was at 80, and the calcium was at 400, and stabilizer was at 30. So being the last visit, I'm going to get this pool prepped up for our technician for next week. So all I'm going to add here is a pound of bicarb and a couple pounds of stabilizer and a gallon of chlorine. And that should have this pool very well balanced for him on his first visit. So I'm going to go ahead and get that process done now. Alright guys, so the first thing we're going to do now that we're performing services on the pool itself is we're going to go ahead and take our skimmer net and do an initial skim. By the way, this isn't any different than a typical service, so just do a full skim like you normally would at any other pool. Alright, so now that we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and do brushing. Alright guys, now that we're done with skimming, we're going to go ahead and brush the entire pool top to bottom. And the brush I like the most is the A&B combo brush, which is a combination of steel bristles and nylon bristles. I found this to be the best medium for brushing pools during a startup versus all steel, which could be very aggressive and cause damage, and also versus all nylon, which really doesn't help expose the surface. This sort of does the best of both worlds. It's very important though, don't be stupid with this. Don't brush aggressively, pressing very hard on the surface or walls or floor or anything like that, because you can possibly damage the surface. Typical pressure for brushing like you would any other pool. Don't go crazy on light fixtures because you can scratch the lenses, and also don't go crazy aggressive on the tile line because you can scratch a tile as well. Sure as hell don't use this on a vinyl liner pool or a fiberglass pool. You will definitely damage the surface by using any steel in the brush. You always want to do nylon just for that. But for this being a PebbleTech pool, we're going to go ahead and use this combo brush here. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. Now, what a lot of people don't do with startups is they don't brush the floor as well, which is equally as important. So we're going to brush every nook and cranny we can of the surface, the sun shelf, the steps, the floor, the walls, just literally everything. So this is going to be probably the longest brushing you're going to do at any pools during startup. So let's go ahead and get started. And again, I'm not using a ton of pressure here. Now it's time to brush the floor. Generally what I like to do is push everything towards the main drain to help get all the dust and everything off each time I'm here so the floor is not completely trashed with dirt. All right, now I got on brushing and skimming the pool. Since this is the last day of the startup, I'm gonna go ahead and clean this filter right here behind me so that way I know it's clean and ready for the tech when they take over next week. All right guys, so we're here at the filter now. Couple things I'd like to do. First, bleed out the air to lower the pressure in the filter. Now in the 𝐬𝐿 series, you see this little push button here. You're gonna have to push that in to enable it to turn the ring. And then the last thing I like to do is, this is a startup, so there's going to be a lot of extra sand and stuff in the bottom of this filter, but really a good rule of thumb for any filter is pop the drain plug before you lift the lid off to get all the nasty water out of the filter system to eliminate blowback into the pool. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop this drain plug real quick. You can see how much surface material came out, you know, just from the startup process. So that's, now we don't have to worry about blowing back in the pool. And then when we take the cartridge out, all the nasty water isn't pulling more dirt and debris in the bottom of the filter to get blown back in the pool too. So it's sort of a win-win. So now let's go ahead and take this off. Good tip is always to step on the base of the filter, not on the plumbing. There we go. No draining cartridge, and the filter is now out of the pool. All right, guys, you see we got the cartridge here. It's sat on a paver in the yard just to not have it all over the deck. Don't wash filters on people's decks. They hate that. So always do it in the yard if you can. If they got a paver or something, you can put the filter underneath. Great. So that way the bottom of the cartridge doesn't get dirty. So I always like to put the setting on jet here just to give as much cleaning pressure as possible. And now we're just going to go ahead and just clean the filter until it's completely as clean as we can get it. So there you go. Clean cartridge, clean driveway, clean deck because we washed it out in the grass, and simple as that. So now let's go ahead and reassemble the cartridge back into the filter. All right, so now looking in the tank, you can see there's still some dirt and some surface material down there. So it's always a good idea to check the tank before you just put the cartridge back in. And so I'm gonna go ahead and wash this out now. What you wanna be careful of is not to splash it up into the center hole there where the tube bleed for the air is because that's what it returns to the pool. So we want to be very gentle and just get it all to go out the waistline right there. All right, so now the tank is 100% clean, and then now just to be nice, we're going to go ahead and just wash the pad off as much as we can and make it look as clean as possible. Then we'll start putting this thing back together. All right, now the pump's back up and running, fully primed up. All we gotta do is bleed the air out. And that's it. Alright guys, so that's my process for starting up a pool. Again, it's not what everybody does, but it's what I do and what I've been successful with. The only two things I got left to do is remove the tablet feeder that's zip tied to the skimmer, and then of course change the run time of the pump from 24 hours to a normal schedule. So other than that, this pool's wrapped up. It looks fantastic and it's ready for swimmers. So I hope you guys learned a little bit. Stay tuned for more videos. Check out the links in the description below. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you next video. Have a great day, everyone.